Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone XR and compare it against the iPhone XS and see how these particular phones hold up in 2025. Now, the big thing I can definitely tell you is that number one, if you're going to go through and pick up any type of phone in this day and age, you probably want to get a phone that's still supported with software, that's probably still going to be giving you software updates in the future. And unfortunately, these phones don't really have that much of a future of what I can tell. They're still supported with software. They're still going to be here for quite some time, probably for the next, couple of months. But they're not, from what the rumors are suggesting, they're not going to be supported for the next 3 years or 5 years or anything like that. So there isn't really that big of a reason to go through and, actively pursue and buy these things. So just kind of keep that in mind. There are a lot of other iPhones I would highly recommend buying more so than this thing. So we'll take a look at all those phones and these phones throughout this whole entire video. First things first though, if you do want to go ahead and pick up some phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these phones. The iPhone XR, which came out in 2018, on the front side of this phone is going to be giving you a 6.1-inch liquid retina IPS panel on the front side. This is one of those types of panels and this is one of those types of phones that I generally think looks pretty good for the most part. When it came out in 2018, it really wasn't that great of a looking phone, and clearly now this thing still doesn't look that great either. But you're going to have to remember that within this type of phone, this is going to be one of those types of devices that, back in 2018 was an okay phone, and nowadays, because of how old it is better in some ways and it is worse in some other ways. So hopefully that kind of makes sense a little bit. With something like the iPhone XR, you're going to have to remember that within this type of device, this is going to be giving you an IPS panel, and that is already fairly outdated. So if you're going to go through and buy a phone, you're already going to be getting a pretty outdated type of panel by the time you go and buy this phone. It's also not that high of a resolution, and it's not really going to be giving you that great of an experience. The iPhone XS is going to be giving you, a better experience for the most part. So within this type of phone, it is going to be giving you a 5.8-inch Super Retina OLED display. So this phone is going to be giving you a little bit of a better experience there, which I think is really nice. I think if you are going to go through and pick up a phone, this is easily one of the most important things to keep in mind here, because you're able to go through, buy a phone like this, and you're able to get a higher resolution display than the iPhone XR, and you're able to go through and get a better device too. So I do think from that standpoint, that definitely makes a lot of sense, and I do like this phone a lot because of that, because it does hold up very, very well from that standpoint. So in that situation, that is kind of one of those things to keep in mind there. They both are giving you lightning ports at the bottom. They're both giving you these curved sides, which is really nice. And then they're both essentially giving you a pretty similar type of experience when it comes down to even the back sides. They're both giving you these standard glass backs. They're both giving you the iPhone XR is giving you a single camera setup, a dual camera setup on the iPhone XS. And then overall, you're still getting really good type of capability. Wireless charging on both as well. So they both feel very good. They both feel very, very premium. And I do think if you are going to go through and pick up a phone, that is kind of a really, important thing to kind of keep in mind there from that particular side. So in my personal opinion, I do think that this phone does do a really good job, and both these phones do a really good job at kind of holding up fairly well when it comes down to it from that side. So at least from the exteriors, that kind of covers it up there. From the price tag side, this is also one of those important things to keep in mind here too, because from both these phones, they're both essentially going to be giving you, like I said before, they both came out at the same time, so they both depreciated roughly around the same amount. You're going to have to remember that with the iPhone XS though, this is going to be one of those phones that does kind of have to, be a little bit more expensive than the XR, but both these phones are still very, very good, and there isn't really that much to complain about here from either one of these from price tag. They both have depreciated a ton. Now, on top of that, another very important thing to keep in mind here too is that between both these phones, they're both giving you the camera setups on the back side. The iPhone XR is giving you that single 12 megapixel camera on the back with a 7 megapixel standard camera on the front, where the iPhone XS is giving you a dual camera setup, a 12 megapixel wide, then a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, and then a 7 megapixel standard camera. So from what I can tell you from my personal opinion, you're definitely getting a pretty good experience from something like the iPhone XS. That one is giving you that dedicated telephoto lens, which I actually like a lot. And it's funny because even something like an iPhone 16e, that phone's only giving you a single camera setup. So the fact that you're getting a dual camera setup from this phone from 7 years ago, it's actually pretty insane in my personal opinion. It's a very good looking camera. It's a very good looking phone on both of these. You can do 4K at 60 on the back. 1080p at 60 on the front. But as you probably would have guessed it, I do think that something like the iPhone XS is probably going to be giving you the overall better experience here when it comes down to kind of how both these phones kind of compare. Because the XS is still, it's not a great camera anymore, but it was a good camera when it first came out. So I do think that is one of those big key takeaway areas here if you're going to go through and like pick up a phone. So that right there's another very important thing to keep in mind there from that particular situation as well. Now, on top of that, when it does kind of come down to their software longevity, this is another one of those things to keep in mind here too. Both these phones are basically going to be giving you the same amount of software longevity when it comes down to it. So they're both supported with software right now. They're both going to be supported with software for the same amount of time. So nothing is really changing there. They're both giving you the same type of experience. So I do think that is one of those big things to keep in mind there as well. Like if you're going to go through and like pick up a phone, you're going to have to remember that with something like the iPhone X or XS, they're both not really supported with software that much right now. So it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for you to go through and like pick up either one of these phones, because it does make a lot more sense to go through and buy a device that's going to be more so supported with software than these ones. So that right there, kind of keep that in mind as well. And when it comes down to their battery lives, the iPhone XR is probably actually going to be giving you a little bit better battery life than the iPhone XS. So if you're wanting the phone that's going to be giving you better battery life, the iPhone XS is probably not going to be lasting as long in terms of battery when compared to the iPhone XR. So that right there is probably going to be another one of those, things to kind of keep in mind there when it comes down to it from that side. So when it comes down to the performance, this was also another interesting thing. They both were giving you the same types of chipsets inside. So they both were basically going through and giving you the same type of experience there. So they both were giving you the Apple A12 chip inside of it. The iPhone XS was giving you the 4 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone XR was basically giving you 3 gigabytes of RAM. So that was kind of the biggest difference here for the most part. Like if you were to go through and like pick up a phone that was going to be giving you a better experience, the iPhone XR would probably end up being the one that is probably going to end up giving you the iPhone XS is going to be giving you a better experience, but the iPhone XR is going to be giving you a really good time as well. They're both going to be very fast phones. And I do think that is one of those important things to keep in mind here from both these phones as well when it comes down to it. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I can definitely tell you is that if you're going to go and pick up either one of these phones, I do think that both these phones are very, very good. They're both very nice phones, but I just wouldn't really recommend buying either one of these phones. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to go down this direction and buy either one of these. It makes a lot more sense to go through and buy a phone that is still supported with software, or at least has a future ahead of it. This phone doesn't have a future ahead of it. It's basically done getting software updates. And I would hate for you to go through and like pick up a device if it's already going to be outdated with software by the time you buy it, if it's going to be an outdated device, right? And that's kind of the situation that we're in. It's like, why would you go through and buy this type of phone when you can go through and buy some other type of device that might be giving you a better experience when it comes down to it? So in my personal opinion, that's kind of how I see this type of device holding up in 2025, or these two comparing in 2025. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.